Hi, Jessica. Welcome to the show. It is so nice to have you here. I am so excited to talk about this topic and subject matter. It's a long time coming, wouldn't you say?
Yes. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited too.
Oh goodness, of course, of course. This is such a fascinating. I mean, we talked a lot off air through the last couple of months, and this is such a fascinating subject for me personally because up until maybe I guess when I found you on social media, I had no idea really what iridology was about. I had no concept of the basics, the foundation of it, and everything in between. So I cannot wait to get into all of this. But before we get going, why don't you tell us just a little bit about yourself and also what got you into iridology? I think that's probably the biggest question I have.
Yeah, I actually stumbled into iridology. So I have a nutrition business, and a while back I was having some symptoms that I couldn't really make sense of. And I stumbled across an iridologist on social media. He was having a sale. And I was like, this is the perfect time to kind of dive into this. I didn't know much about it. So I contacted him. I thought, what do I have to lose? I love everything natural. I'm attracted to everything God made. And I sent him photos of my eyes. I don't think I really gave him much information about myself. I just sent him iris photos. And he came back to me with information that I had not told him about myself that was true. And he helped me place the pieces of the puzzle together as far as these weird symptoms that I just couldn't make out and kind of helped me trace it back to root cause. And I was blown away. And from that moment on, I knew this was something that I had to learn more about because it helped me so much. And I just kept thinking, how much more can it help other people? Other people need this natural modality. And how awesome would that be to integrate it into my nutrition business? So I went to school. I studied under Beth Hovis. She is amazing. I'll give you her information. Um, but I studied under her, got certified, and then I went on to get my board certification. And then I've been doing irises ever since. And I have done hundreds and hundreds of irises, and every single time it's like the first time. It's just so every time I look at an eye, even though I've seen so many of them, I'm just like astounded by how much information they hold, what they tell about the individual. It's just God's design is amazing, impeccable. I love it.
I could not agree more. I could not agree more.
Yeah.
It's so, too, what makes me think about, first of all, the fascination around this. Like I said, I probably used the word fascination in terms of like our discussion 50 billion times. But also, what I really love about it is that it's so non invasive. It's so informative and so non
Hmm.
invasive. And
Hmm.
that kind of hit me when you were speaking. But, for those who are listening that are like, wait, what are you guys talking about? Is this like eye health? Like, is this like going to, the eye doctor? No. So why don't you give us just a basic rundown on what it is in the first place and what are you doing with your clients?
Yeah. So iridology is the study of one's health through the analysis of the iris, which is the beautiful colored part of our eye, the pupil, and the sclera, which is the white part. And so, what the iridologist does, and you're right, it's completely non-invasive. There is no piercing of the skin. There's nothing you have to drink or anything that would harm you. No radiation involved. The iridologist is just looking at the eye, and it is designed in such a way that we can see every body organ, system, and gland. So, just by looking at the eye, it's awesome.
It is so awesome. I
Yeah.
literally, well, first of all, I'm dying to do it myself because I am just so, like I said, I'm so interested in it, and I would
Mhm.
love to see what comes up for me. So we're gonna get that. We're gonna get that going. I think at some point in the very near future. But um, I'm glad that you. I'm glad that you. And I know we're gonna go into it, but there's like a difference because there's the sclera and then there's the pupil and there's things about those, but the iris is really the focus, correct?
Correct. Yeah. It's a beautiful relationship. We use all of it to gather the information, but the iris is the focus.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, in terms of like origin, do you want to touch on like how this all kind of came to fruition in terms of a practice in general? I mean, like, how did this even start?
So we actually have, so the field and science of iridology is relatively new-ish, but the examination of the eye has been around thousands of years. We have paintings and carvings, and even in King Tut's tomb, there's like a um, drawing of an eye, but not just an eye, there's markings inside the eye, suggesting that people were looking into the eye thousands of years ago to ascertain one's health and to gain information. And so the study of the eye to gain information about what's going on inside the body, I would say it's almost as old as the eye itself. But the actual field and science of iridology is newer. So,
Okay, okay, I got it.
yeah.
That's got it, got it, got it. Well, no, that it's helpful information because again, you're not really hearing people speak a lot about iridology even today, and it's
You're
something
not.
where yeah, we're obviously in a time in life where things are there's a lot of exposure to other modalities and so forth, but
Mhm.
I would still say that this is sort of still in the background. It's not something that a lot of people are still speaking of.
Yeah, I agree. There are so many people, I tell them I'm an iridologist, and they say, "What? What now?" And so, yeah, you're right. Even though we have so many natural modalities available to us, and that's such a blessing, iridology still needs to get out there.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, we
I
still need to
agree.
expose the world to it and what the eye is capable of telling us about ourselves, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Well, that's what we're going to do today. I am literally so excited. Like, I am so excited. In terms of clientele, it's just more of a curiosity question here. Like, what type of client typically comes to you? I mean, I should say, who's coming to you? What kind of, symptoms are they complaining about? Do people bring their children? Like, what does that look like for you in practice?
So, my average client is a female. She sometimes I'll get males, sometimes I will get children, and I love doing children. They're my absolute favorite client. I get super excited when I get kids. But they're female. They usually have a diagnosis or two. They've dealt with allopathy, they've dealt with mainstream medicine. They're not satisfied with that. And they just have this innate knowledge that the body can heal itself, but they don't know how. And they just need a little bit of instruction. Um, I also have people coming to me that are simply curious about what their eyes say about themselves. Like they want to learn more about themselves. What do my eyes say? And so those are always really fun. Those are always really fun clients because they're blown away. They always tell me, yes, you have confirmed, whether it's a personality trait or some physical symptoms that they've been dealing with. Yes, you've confirmed, or this all makes sense from my past. So the iris is like a puzzle. It's a beautiful puzzle. And the iridologist just puts all the pieces together and helps this person understand themselves more and how God made them. Because the iris is genetic, eye color is genetic, your iris structure, how the iris fibers are laid out, is genetic. And because of that, we can see 3 generations back in your eyes. And that's how I can tell about genetic strengths and weaknesses that someone might have, which is why it's so valuable for kids. Um, and that's how I can tell about personality traits. If an individual is super creative, it will show in their eyes. If an individual is more like a type A, let's do everything, I can't say no to anything kind of person, that will show in their eyes. So, yeah.
I know it's mind blowing to me. I literally am just like, It's mind-blowing in the best way because I just can't imagine what it can reveal. I mean, isn't there like a saying or something, it's like eyes are the window. Eyes are the window to the it's also they could be the window to the soul and the health, right? I mean, truly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
truly,
Yeah.
truly. The
Um
iris has 28,000 nerve endings that connect to the nervous system via the optic nerve. And that's how the iridologist can see the heart in the eye, the nervous system. I can see gut health, circulatory issues that are going on in the body. I can tell that. The iris will even, and I actually have a photo that I'm going to pull up demonstrating this because it's so amazing. But high cholesterol and high triglycerides can be seen in the eye as well. So yeah,
it's oh, it's honestly amazing. And I can see
it
why you
is.
would be so excited with children as as part of your clientele too, because it seems as though if these things are found or at least acknowledged at a younger age, there can probably be, a change in pace, in their life to some degree, or a change in direction. And the parents can really take charge and be a little bit more proactive because if there are predispositions or there are, traits that they have, they can manage that appropriately. So I could see why children would be so fun for you.
Yeah, and so valuable. I'm also going to bring up my son's eye, and I'm going to talk about that
Oh,
in a
yeah.
little bit. But iridology shines in as a preventative healthcare tool. In preventative medicine, it just shines because it speaks so loudly about the genetics, because you can look at the eye and say, uh-oh, there's a pancreatic weakness right there. And often clients will tell me, oh my gosh, my mom had diabetes or my father had digestive issues. Um, and then you gear the diet and you can gear some supplements to cater to that to make sure that you don't end up with that 10, 20, 30 years down the road. And so you can identify those areas of weaknesses and strengths, but those areas of weaknesses, and you can do something about them so you don't have a diagnosis or a label attached to you. And yeah, that's why in preventative healthcare, iridology is untouched.
Yeah, I was going to say really a standout. And it's just, I mean, there are very little practices today, I would say, that I can think of off the top of my head where you're really getting information prior to a problem or a symptom, right?
Right,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Because most people are going to the doctor or going to a practitioner
Hmm.
because those symptoms have already started, and so it's just like, oh, like I said, it's a window in to some really potentially valuable information that could be life changing, you know it's again, it's incredible. I know we're going to share some pictures in a few, but let's talk specifics about the iris and iris signs. I really want to get into this because I know this is the meat of the practice, but like, how is the iris constructed? What are the different, things that you could be looking at? What are nerve rings? I know there's a lot going on here. So, and then you can bring up pictures anytime, friends, just so you know, this is also going to be on YouTube, as the shows now always are. But this is definitely going to be one, if you're listening and not watching, that you're probably going to want to go and visit the YouTube version as well, so you can see Jessica's pictures, because she's going to be describing some things on and off moving forward through this episode. So just a little preempt there. But yeah, tell us a little bit about just the iris in general.
So the iris is made up of fibers. And truly, those are blood vessels that are wrapped in connective tissue. And actually, can I go ahead and just let me
Yeah,
bring up my son's eye. You
sure.
guys can see this.
I'm so excited to see it.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, wow.
So this is his beautiful blue eye. Can you see my cursor too?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Um, this is his beautiful blue eye. Okay. In iridology, density in the iris fibers, and do you see all of these iris fibers?
Yes, yes.
Density equals resiliency. So the body's ability to bounce back from disease or injury is strong. Nerve flow is strong. Connective tissue is strong. If we
Wow.
look over here at around 3 o'clock, do we see how it's a little less dense than these fibers?
Yes, yes,
And
yes.
there's also a little hole right here. Do we see that?
I do.
Okay. Um, this lack of density will mean a lack of resiliency in the body. And this is all genetic. He was born with this. He didn't do anything to have that develop. This is all genetic. This is his thyroid reaction field. So
Okay.
I know only from what the eyes tell me, it's so amazing, that he has a genetic weakness in his thyroid. Now, his thyroid is fine right now. There's nothing wrong with it. Genetically speaking, that tissue has a weakness that's been passed down. And so, as a parent, how valuable is that? That I can see, um, and I know exactly where in the body to support now. I'll give him essential oils for the thyroid. We'll take some thyroid herbs. Um, and most importantly, I will teach him about himself from looking at his eye. Like, hey, buddy, this is a little bit of a weakness, genetically speaking. Everybody has them. There's no such thing as perfect genetics. It's in your thyroid. These are symptoms of a low functioning thyroid, XYZ. And so he is now empowered to notice these symptoms in himself, and we're going to gear our diet and we're just going to make sure that, and hydration towards having a healthy thyroid, we're going to make sure we see that chiropractor so that the nerve flow to these tissues is strong so your cells can function. So when you identify those areas of strengths and weaknesses, whether in a child or yourself, you're empowered, right? And you
Right.
know exactly what area in the body to support.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow,
Um,
this is amazing. Wow. Wow. And by the way, I just want to say I love the way that you communicated that because I feel like it's important the way in which we communicate, especially to children, but equally it's important for adults. I like how you said we all have tendencies. We all have weaknesses. There's no such thing as perfection when it comes to genetics or perfection in health in general. And here's the way that we are going to support these, but also equally we have strengths too. I mean, it's the words and the language is so important. I love that you spoke that way.
Yeah, it's this empowerment is just
Yeah,
it's what will take away that dependency on modern medicine. Once
absolutely.
he understands how his body works and what is unique to him, then he can put the tools in place.
Right.
And always, always, I stress that your lifestyle choices are stronger than your genetics. That's how we change genetics, by our lifestyle choices. And so even though, we see this weakness in the thyroid, even though do you see his nerve rings?
Yes, I do.
These are the nerve rings. It's a literal buckling of the iris fiber. He was born with those. Those are genetic. Even though we see these nerve rings, which tells me that he's sensitive, his nervous system is more sensitive than most people. He's more susceptible to stress, internalizing stress, burning through his minerals. Um, even though we see that, because we see that, we now know how to better take care of ourselves, right?
Right, right.
I mean, this is not nothing in the eye is by accident. Every single thing is on purpose. Every single color, look, you can see he has beautiful yellow. See that yellow pigment? That
Yeah.
yellow on top of his blue sometimes makes his eyes look green. It's beautiful. That's there on purpose. This is here on purpose. His nerve rings are there on purpose. So this is literally how God designed him. And the eye helps us understand the human better. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And honestly, it's
It's
chilling in the
amazing.
best way. I mean, it's just absolutely fascinating. I feel like I can't stop smiling.
I know. I can't think of any other modality where you can just by looking, right? By taking a photograph. That's all we need, a photograph. We don't even need a photograph. we can just look in the eye, right?
Right,
And
right.
just see this.
S-
So,
Wow. So, just a quick question. How would someone show you a photograph of, is it up to you to blow up their eye? Do they just send like a regular picture? I know it's just like an off the cuff question, but just, I'm just curious.
yeah, my clients just take their iris photos. I'll send them instructions on how to do that,
Uh huh.
and they email them to me.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah. So it's just as simple as that. Okay.
it is.
Wow.
Yes.
It's really, it's just like mind blowing. This is absolutely mind blowing.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
you mentioned these nerve rings. And again, you guys, I really am putting emphasis on, the fact that you got to get over to the YouTube version of this episode so you could see what she's referring to. But we're going to try to make it easy to listen to also and try to be as descriptive as possible. So, these rings that are in the iris, I can see from the looks of it, I could see at least two. So, can you like what is the actual definition of a nerve ring?
So, good question. I'm going to bring up my other child.
Ooh, look at that eye. Gorgeous.
Maybe. I'm not sure if I can enlarge that. Anyhow,
That's okay. It's big enough.
hang on.
Yeah.
No, that's fine. We'll just leave it.
Yeah, we
Okay.
can leave it.
Um, this is my middle child. He by far has the most contraction furrows. I call them nerve rings because it's easy for people to understand that these relate to the nervous system. And so they look like circular arcs going around. They're usually around the perimeter of the iris.
Yeah.
Sometimes they can be here in the digestive field. They can go all the way around, or they can just run through a couple different zones. But yes, they are genetic. You are born with them. We see babies with them. Um, you are born with exactly how many nerve rings is genetically determined. You don't earn more. So
Okay. Oh, that was going to be
if
my
you go
question.
through life, yeah, if you go through life as a total stress ball, you won't accumulate more nerve rings. On the other side, if you are like the most calm, peaceful person ever, you won't lose your nerve rings. So, like I said, they're just genetically determined. Um, and they tell the story about you and about your mom and your dad and your grandpa and your grandma. They tell about your genetic heritage. It's
Wow.
awesome. You know, sometimes you hear about people wanting to change their eye. I want to change my eye color. I want to change such and such. But why would you want to erase anything that's in the eye? This is you. This is how God made you.
Well said. I personally feel the exact same way. I don't know why anybody would want to change their eyes because, everybody's just so unique and so beautiful in their own way, but it's fascinating. And these rings, they kind of look, I'm like, pointing. I don't think you could see me point, but they kind of look like layers.
Oops,
Like
sorry.
there's like a layer on top of a layer on top of a layer, but I realize that it's just probably almost like an illusion in a way, but it's almost like a stack. That's what it looks like to me, when I first look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The iris fiber has gone down.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Now this is another eye, right?
This is my eye.
Oh, this is your eye. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. Okay. Okay.
This is my eye. You can see that I have the nerve rings as well.
Yeah.
I pass them down to all three of my children, which is actually quite handy because I can identify my own nervous system sensitivities and my own desire to do a million things at once and just run my nervous system on overdrive. And my children are the same. And so we can relate to each other. We can share stress coping techniques. I understand how they are because of the qualities that we share in our eyes. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So,
Wow. And so you've got some, I don't know if you want to touch on this now or later. That's totally up to you. You're running the show right now. But you have some beautiful specs in there. Now, and I realize it's like
yeah.
an entire map, right? And it would probably take, hours to go through everything about one's
Yeah.
eye. So we're just going to we're gonna touch on certain things, but those specks now, do they mean anything?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Everything in the eye means something and it's on purpose. Okay, so I have this is actually this eye, my eye will look brown if we're inside. If the sun shines in my eyes, they'll look green.
Okay.
Um, so I have what's called a biliary eye. It's a mixed eye.
Okay.
So even though my eyes will look brown to the naked eye, my eyes are not brown. I'll show you a brown eye.
Okay.
It's a mix. It's a mixture of brown and blue. I have both those colors in my genetic heritage, and so I received a mix. It's called a biliary. What was your question? I went off on eye color.
No, hey,
I'm sorry.
I'm all
Oh,
about it.
pigments.
Yep, the little
Pigment.
pigment, little pigment spots. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And so you have your base color of the eye, which would be blue mixed, which we call biliary or brown. And then you can have different pigments accumulate on top of that.
Oh,
Some of those pigments are genetically determined and just reflect your mom and dad and grandpa and grandma and perhaps issues that they went through. And some of them are due to our lifestyle choices that we make. Um, but the different colors and the pigments in the eye can be traced back to different organs. So in my eye, what color do you see a lot of?
oh gosh. I see kind of like hazily color with a little bit of, and then there's like a kind of a greenish background, and then those specks are just kind of almost like a chocolate brown. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
that's what I see.
Yes. So these look brownish, huh?
Yeah, they do.
And then up here, do you see that orange color?
Orange. Uh-huh.
Yeah, I have a lot of orange in my eye. And then you'll see yellow right here.
Yeah.
So orange actually brings us back to the pancreas.
Oh.
So when I see an orange pigment or orange color, if this was a client, because orange stands out the most to me, I would immediately be asking about the pancreas. Hey, how's your blood sugar? Any digestive issues? It happens that diabetes does run in my family. And that pancreatic weakness is clearly shown in my eyes via the orange pigment. So my pancreas is something that I need to keep in the back of my mind at all times, right?
Right. Right.
Eat a pancreas friendly diet, throw some castor oil packs on him,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And then brown pigments in the iris take us back to the liver
Ah.
and has us going, hey, how's the liver doing? How's that little guy doing? Big guy.
Right. Right. Big,
Um,
big, big guy.
yeah, he's a large organ
Yeah.
for sure. Very busy. He does a lot of things in our body. But so when I see brown pigments, that brings us back to the liver. And we match up pigments with other signs in the eye. If there's a lot of other liver signs in the eye and there's brown pigments, then we're going to be talking about the liver. We're going to be talking about digestion, right? So
Wow.
yeah, the
So,
different colors are very telling.
yeah,
And the colors do not, sorry,
no,
I
no,
think I
no,
interrupted
please.
you.
No, 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 please keep going. Keep
The
going.
colors do not leave the eye. The iris is accumulative, it's not dispersive. And so once a color is there, it is there. It's part of the beautiful story that is you, a story of your choices, a story of your genetics. So.
So fascinating. So just to be clear about the colors, so for the most part, would it be safe to say that when a color is representative, like the example that you just gave us, the orange representing the pancreas, or the is it the brown that represents the liver?
Mhm.
That indicates weakness, not strength. So the more of the color, the more the weakness. What would also indicate a strength?
Genetically speaking, just because someone has that color in their eye doesn't mean something's wrong with them right now.
Got it. Okay, got it.
It, like for me, everything's fine, but because I know this is my genetics, I'm still going to keep this
Yeah.
particular organ in mind. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes total sense. And
Okay.
I almost made, just made myself laugh because I was like, you're going to keep an eye on it.
Yep.
I'll be here all day, friends. I'll be here all day. Uh, okay, so is there anything else that you can tell us about your eye while we have it up?
Yeah,
Please
gosh.
keep going. Keep going.
But
I'm dying to know.
we can move on
Okay.
to different eyes. Although we can talk about my pupil.
Yeah, I was going to say, can you talk about, because there is there's a relationship between the iris and the pupil, and of course a relationship between the iris and the sclera. And so, yeah, this might be a good time to dig into that while you have your eye up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um, so the pupil tells us a lot about the central nervous system. The collarette will tell us about the autonomic nervous system. I'm sorry. The collarette is this circle around the pupil. I'm tracing it right now.
Okay,
It
so
is composed of nerves, and it represents the dynamic between the two branches of the autonomic. The pupil is made up of living nerve tissue um, from the central nervous system. And this is actually how I can tell if a client needs an adjustment, which I will say, like 98% of people need adjustments, energy to their spinal area, realignment. I'm going to tell you how.
okay.
Um, when there is inflammation, subluxation, the pupil will actually, so we think of the pupil as like the round black hole in our eye. Rarely do I actually see a round pupil. When there is an injury or, like I said, subluxation, inflammation, the pupil will flatten in certain sectors.
Mm.
And I almost never see a perfectly round pupil. I always see pupils that have a flattening. And can you see that flattening right there?
I can. Yeah, on one
Okay.
side. On one side it
Yeah.
is. For those who are just listening, she's pointing to it would be like my right side if we are looking at the screen.
So it's nice and round, and then boom, it has that
Mhm.
flattening.
Mhm. I see it. Yeah.
And that can tell us which area of the spine needs adjusting. I would always advise my clients go see a chiropractor. I'm a huge fan of chiropractic work, just personally speaking.
Same.
But then it also tells us about possible areas in the body that would be affected by that lack of nerve energy, right? So we would look at these organs adjacent to it and consider those. So the pupil can tell us a lot.
So in this case with the flattening of the pupil in that area, where does that pair back to on the spine? Do you have is there like a certain area of your spine that in this case would need a little bit of love?
Yes, for sure. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And would it be as
Yeah.
specific as like, cervical, lumbar, thoracic? Would it be super tailored?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Absolutely
Yeah.
incredible.
The spine is represented, the vertebrae in the spine is represented in the iris, um, just like all the other body organs and glands and systems. So
Amazing.
I know it's a map
Absolutely.
to the body.
It really
It's
is.
amazing.
And it's
Yeah.
interesting because I was just thinking about, I was thinking about that term because I was like, wow, even if I just flat out asked you the question, like, okay, like, what is, like, how would you explain, like, the general just map of the body? Like, give us all, it's like, that's why we're doing the interview like this because it's impossible to answer that question because there's so much information we would never cover it all. It's like we just have to like kind of give examples and give like certain highlights because it just seems like that would take days and days to answer because there's just so much. The map is so extensive.
Yes.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. So, anything more about the pupil that you want to discuss before we move on to another eye?
Um, this is kind of an interesting note about the pupil. We often think of the pupil as being in the center of the eye, but
Hmm.
it's not. It's
Oh,
slightly offset towards the canthus, which is right here.
yes.
So it's slightly offset towards the nose. So
I can see that.
this is a left eye. It's this pupil is going to be slightly to the left. Um, and that's actually quite handy because the pupil is one of the ways that iridologists can determine which eye we're looking at if we cannot see the canthus. So,
Fascinating.
yeah,
Absolutely fascinating. And yeah, it's interesting because at first glance, you're like, oh, yeah, the pupil's in the middle. But no, when you actually analyze it and you take a step back, I'm going, it's not in the middle. It's definitely offset. Wild.
yeah.
Absolutely
If you
wild.
look at it, you can see that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Oh my goodness. Okay, okay. Shall we move? Shall we move on?
Let's move on.
Yeah, give us another one.
Okay. This is my mom's eye.
Okay.
This is going to be an example of, I remember I was talking about cholesterol and I just cannot say that word, can I?
Triglycerides.
Triglyceride
It's
levels.
kind of a hard one to say. Oh, wow.
Yeah. Okay. So this is my mom's eye. This is a true brown eye. Can you see the difference between my eye, which just had a mixture of all different colors, and then her eye?
Yes.
This is a true hematogenic brown eye.
Okay.
Even though the mixed eye like mine will look brown to the naked eye, it's not. So, and you know what? People sometimes say, "Oh, I just have boring brown eye. Oh, my eyes are just brown." Look how gorgeous this eye is. It looks like soft velvet.
It
It's just
does.
beautiful.
It
It's just
looks like
beautiful.
it kind of almost reminds me of something in the sea, like some sort of beautiful floating
Yeah.
creature. I mean, like this is just, it's wild. Oh my goodness. And
Yeah.
this pupil is so different looking as well. Not just the iris, but her pupil is so different than just the last eye, your eye that was just up on the screen a minute ago. It's just really
Yeah.
amazing. Okay,
Yeah.
so what are we specifically going to be looking for here?
Okay. So do you see this glob of clear liquid around her eye?
Yes, and it's on
Okay.
the outer, for those who are listening, it's on the outer portion of the iris.
It almost looks like the iris is sitting inside of it, like it's encased in it.
Yes, yes.
This is called a lipemic diathesis. Lipemic meaning fats. And it's not truly an iris sign. This is actually lipids. This is an accumulation of lipids that has formed on her cornea. The cornea is that clear dome over our eye, over our iris. Um, and it forms when we have, or there is a genetic predisposition to high cholesterol, high triglycerides, which she has.
Mm,
Um, the liver is also often involved,
yeah.
especially when we have cholesterol and triglyceride issues. The liver is also involved, so we would check the liver. But when I see this in a client, I just ask about cardiovascular health. I ask about everything related to cholesterol. I ask about liver health. If they're unaware, I might suggest that they go get a panel done by their doctor just to see where we're at. And then, of course, we're going to tailor that diet and we're going to change that diet to make sure that everything is brought back down to normal, homeostasis is returned. So, this is another amazing way where you don't have to pierce the skin, you don't have to draw blood, but you can see, uh-oh, there's an imbalance.
Yeah.
Let's ask more questions. Let's talk to the client more. Let's dig deeper.
Right.
Um, it's just so
Truly like a
cool.
window. I mean, it really is. It's literally like a window. And so just to be
Yes.
clear for our friends, like that outer, it was a very fancy name for the outer portion. That has always been there for your mom.
No.
Okay.
So
Okay.
this, yeah. So this sign does develop in older age. It's not seen in children.
Okay.
Um, We usually see it in individuals 50 years and older. If I see it in individuals that are younger than 50, it's a little it's a little more, well, I don't really want to say it's a little bit more of a priority. I don't want to say I take it more seriously, but I take it more seriously. Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Yeah. I don't want to, I was thinking like it's a little bit more alarming, but I would say maybe not alarming, just it's something that you definitely want to prioritize.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
And so, and this, her, we call it a cholesterol ring. It is called a lipemic diathesis. Hers is very thick, very
Yes.
big.
Yes.
I
Okay.
normally do not see them this large.
Okay. Yeah. It's pretty
And
substantial.
it's pretty substantial. That's a good word for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I just lost my thought.
No,
Oh,
it's okay.
just like the iris. Remember we were talking about how the iris is accumulative and not dispersive?
Yes.
In its signs and its colors and its structure. Um, this also has not been shown to go away. So even after cholesterol levels are restored, the liver is cleansed and pristine, whatever you may need to do to restore balance in the body, this will remain as well.
Okay.
Again, it's just a beautiful part of her life story, her genetics and the choices that she's made in life. So,
Wow. Wow. Fascinating. Now I kind of have another question. So when I'm looking at her the pupil to me looks like the center of a sunflower, and there is a sunflower around it. Like the petals are around it, and I don't know how to describe it any other way. So the petals on the sunflower, what does that represent? Because it seems to stick out quite a bit.
so let's see. Are
Yes.
you talking about the collarette that goes around the pupil?
Yes, that's what it's called, the collarette.
Collarette, yeah.
Collarette. Okay,
This
so
right
what is
here, what I'm
this?
tracing.
Yep, that.
So everybody has these. They vary in their thickness. They vary. Some of them are close down here to the pupil. Some collarettes. You can also call this the nerve ring. It's made up of nerves.
Oh,
Some collarettes are out here. Some are way out here. But everybody has one. This actually outlines the bowel walls. So we're talking, okay, so pupil. Right next to the pupil, we have the stomach. So this is the stomach reaction field.
okay.
And then we have the small intestines further out, large intestines represented here. And so this represents her ability to eliminate,
Oh,
how well she is able to digest and absorb her foods, genetically speaking, because this is all genetically determined. And it's beautiful in her. She has
yeah.
a beautiful collarette. If it was in here, if it was closer to the pupil and a little bit constricted, there might be some tight, narrow areas of the bowel wall, and clients I would expect them to say, yeah, I've been suffering from some constipation, impaction.
Okay.
So it tells us about the bowels.
And that map is the same, right? So, like in terms of fields, every time you're looking at an eye, the fields are always going to be the same on everybody.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay. Great.
yes.
Yeah. Just wanted to clarify for all of us. Okay. Okay.
They're
Go ahead.
they differ slightly in the left and the right eye, but they
Okay.
remain the same. Yeah.
Okay.
And
Okay.
even your two eyes are different.
Would there
They
be?
have different structure.
Uh-huh.
They have different um, colors in them. So even between you and how your eyes are so unique, there's no one that has your eyes. Even your own two eyes are different.
Okay.
That's pretty
Wow.
cool.
That's
Yeah.
really cool. Really cool. Would there be a difference in like pupil size from eye to eye?
So there is a healthy pupil size that we want to see.
Okay.
Um, Sometimes we'll see larger pupils. indicating someone that may be led more sympathetically dominant. And when we see smaller pupils, it could be that person is more parasympathetically led. So that can also, yeah, the pupils tell us a lot about the nervous system.
Yeah. And will it
Um,
always be simultaneously doing the same thing, or like, or would what could one be bigger than the other at any given time? Or are they always going to be representing the same size?
they should always be the same size.
Gotcha.
If there's been an injury, one can be larger than the other.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And children's pupils are often large,
Okay.
and that's normal.
That's
Children are
normal.
so children are so precious and so innocent and so trusting, and it's reflected. They tend to always have large pupils, and I think that's just a reflection of that.
Wow.
So,
That's amazing. Just in
yeah,
itself. My
yeah.
goodness. Wow. 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 Is there anything else that you want to tell us about your mom's eye?
I mean, we could be here for days,
I
but
know. I know.
we we can move on to another iris if you'd like.
Okay, let's do it. Let's do it. I'm the passenger right now in this plane, train, automobile. I'm just here for this amazing ride.
All right, let's see.
Pretty.
Nope, don't do that.
Wow, look at that.
I'm gonna do something really quick.
Sure. Take your time.
Can we stop it really quick?
Sure.
I'm sorry. I'm not sure how to make this
Oh, there you go.
bigger. Okay, so this is obviously blue eye. This is another good example of contraction furrows, which I call nerve rings. You can see them going around the perimeter, circular arcs. Again, these are genetic. But this whiteness right here.
Yeah, along the
So
outer,
I'm
it's
trying,
like the outer. There's like an outer, almost looks like little specks of whiteness.
yes, and I'm gonna describe it for those not actually watching right now. I'm trying to keep that in mind.
Perfect.
Um, it looks like little white cotton balls on the edge of the iris.
Yeah, yeah.
These are called tophi. These are genetic as well. And they tell us that this particular individual has a tendency for stagnant lymph, a stagnant
Oh,
lymphatic system, um, sensitive mucous membranes. So think ear infections, coughs, and so for this individual, we would pay a lot of attention to the lymphatic system. We would make sure that the diet is alkaline, full of hydrating, fresh, raw, living foods. We would remove congestive foods because we see that there is that genetic potential towards fluids in the body that may not move as we want them to, right? So this is an example of another iris sign, these little tophi,
wow.
and they are usually found out here in the perimeter, but they can be elsewhere in the eye. And so the perimeter of the iris is the lymphatic zone and the skin as well. So,
So cool. Wow. 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 This is so, so cool. Actually, this is a perfect time to add this in. Well, by the time this this episode airs, the other one will already be out because I'm getting ready to release a show on the lymphatic system, which is one of the most amazing, just Well, it's such an amazing part of our body that is so underrated and so critically important. And I had the
Yes.
yeah, I had the pleasure of interviewing Dr. Perry Nicholson from Stop Chasing Pain. Yeah,
Stop.
yeah, and
I
so
love
I
him.
know I am like his I am like a number one fan too. I cannot.
Okay.
So by the time if you know by the time this airs, that show will be out. And so yeah, you guys, if you do want to learn more about the limb system, you have to go check out that show. It'll be episode 52 because it's coming out in a few days. But it's just awesome timing that you happen to bring this up. Um, is there a
Yeah.
reason why they seem more clustered in one area, or does that even matter? Like, I can kind of see that it's like there's more of those little cotton balls sort of on the bottom, and then,
Around 6 o'clock.
yeah, around 6 o'clock, and maybe like, 1:33, like that, and like not as much on the other side.
This is genetics.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's going to be more of a predisposition towards congestion within this area. These are her kidneys.
Okay.
Um, and so, yeah, but this is all genetically determined. So, um, lymphatic herbs, herbs for the lymph, recommending rebounding is great. For an iris like this. And these, the more white fibers in this blue eye, in a blue eye, the more gray it will appear to the naked eye. Or it could even be like, have you ever seen really pretty ice blue eyes?
Yes.
They're gorgeous.
Yeah, they are.
Those eyes have a lot of white fibers. Now, these fibers, look, you can see this one. These are like irritated fibers. They can tell us where there tends to be tissue irritation or inflammation. So we would just look at these areas. But these fibers are raised. So as opposed to contraction furrows, the nerve rings, which go down, these go up. So these are like raised. And doesn't it look kind of irritated?
It does a little.
It draws your eye to this area of the iris.
Yeah.
Um, so, but
Wow.
yeah, we would gear the lymphatic system is definitely a nurture point for this individual. This is my
Okay.
daughter.
Oh, okay.
Um, yeah.
I like how we're doing the family here today.
I asked I asked all their permission to use their eyes.
Well, it's funny because I figured too that that was probably a lot of why we were doing family because otherwise there would have to be permission for other clients. But
Yeah.
I think it's amazing. I think it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's so
Yeah.
fun to be able to just learn more. It's just absolutely beyond fascinating to me.
Hmm.
And it's interesting that you said the icier blue, the eye, the chances of these things being present. That's really, really interesting. Because I mean, I have
Hmm.
fairly icy blue eyes, and then I
Do
have a
you? Okay.
sibling, yeah, who has very icy blue eyes, but like they're super bright. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So think lymphatic system.
Hmm.
Think always moving these fluids. Think maintaining a healthy pH and alkalinity within the body. If the icy blue-eyed individuals become out of balance, we're talking arthritis, aches and pains, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um,
Hi.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. This is
Yeah.
making a lot of sense. It's making a lot of
The
sense.
blue-eyed are very sensitive to lymph issues. Um,
Ah.
and so they do have a lot of arthritis and just aches and pains if they get out of balance. And it's our job to show them their disposition and to help them to, stay in balance.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, absolutely. You know, when we're looking at the picture and would it be something where like you're looking at it as a clock? So, because I know it's easy to point to that, like just for reference points, but if you were to say like 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on, would those areas be representative of a different organ or is it kind of like yes and no?
so yeah, I use the iris as a clock. So I'll identify iris signs at like 3 o'clock or 11:45. Is that what you were asking?
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, yeah, for the
Okay.
most part. And like, would they
Yeah.
be representative? So, like at 3 o'clock, I'm just throwing something out there. at 3 o'clock, would it be like, oh, that's the whatever point, right? Like the I'm not saying it is the stomach, but just because of them being hypothetical, like that's the stomach on everybody, or what?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah. So this is a right eye
okay. Oh
because we can
yes,
see the campus right
yes,
here.
yes, yes.
This is always going to be the thyroid reaction field on a right eye. Over here are the lungs.
Okay, okay.
Down here are the kidneys. So that won't change
That won't change.
for
Okay.
anyone. Yeah. Up here is honestly, it's kind of like the human body. Up at the top is the head and the brain. We
Oh,
have the pituitary, pineal, and pons right here. And then down at the bottom, we have the hip, thigh, knee, foot, kidneys. The stomach and the bowels are right in the center by the pupil.
wow. So it is like
Spinal
kind of
cord right here.
wow. 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 It really is like representative almost of the body, but in a very small version.
I know, in a tiny version in your eye.
Yeah. This is it's mind-blowing to me. This is absolutely mind-blowing to me. I also have another question. So, what is the whites or the sclera of this eye are pretty white, I would say, in comparison to not only one, at least one of the other eyes that we've looked at, but in comparison to some that we just see like normally and naturally. What is the relationship to the sclera, and why do we see different colors in the sclera?
Yeah, that's a great question. Okay, let me first say that there is an entire field that is dedicated to the sclera. It's called sclerology.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Oh my gosh. So we know that the iris is a map to the body. So is the sclera. The sclera is a map as well. It has its own map. And I am not a sclerologist, although in iridology we do learn some sclera signs. Um, so amazing.
It's just
But
neat.
yes, so the sclera as well is a map, and every single blood vessel. So she's 7. So her scleras are pretty darn white.
Yeah. Yeah.
But every single blood vessel that we see, just like the iris, is there on purpose.
Wow.
Um, it- it's not like you wake up one day and there's a blood vessel in your eye. Oh, well, that's there. That's nice. No, it's there for a reason. And it's there in that spot for a reason. And it means something. Let me. So the sclera is very dynamic,
Oh,
and the
wow.
iris is very
Wow. Okay.
stable.
We're looking at another eye now, friends.
Yes, I'm sorry. This is a past client of mine. Look at this beautiful blue eye. It's
Oh,
so bright.
wow. So
I
bright.
know. Um, and so the sclera is very dynamic. It changes. You know, we know when we cry a lot, our eyes turn red, or we sit and we zone out in front of the TV and we have bloodshot eyes, but that goes away. And so, um, as opposed to the iris, which doesn't change much, the sclera does change. And it is a very telling indicator of what's happening right now.
Okay.
Um, but we can see some interesting things in this sclera. Do you see this yellow wash in the
Yes.
corner of the eye and over here? So the white sclera has taken on a yellow color, but it's not entirely yellow.
Yes.
So yellow in the sclera would point us back to the liver.
Yeah.
And this individual um, did drink alcohol daily, and he drank soda daily. And his liver was talking to us.
Yeah. 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 Processing some excess there.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
And so my work with him involved taking those out of his life. And oh my gosh, he was amazing. He did it. Like he
Wow.
followed my instructions so well. Um, but this yellow wash can leave. And we also see these thick red blood vessels, right?
Yes.
And these would indicate congestion within the body. Um, Circulation is not as it should be. And these are in specific reaction fields as well. So up here in the sclera would be like the head area, the thyroid would be right here. And so this is in a specific area telling him, hey, there's congestion in XYZ.
My
And this one
gosh.
as well.
That is so fascinating. I can't even get over it.
I know, I know.
Oh my gosh.
So
I want to make a quick
this,
note, really quick about this with the wash, the yellow wash. So, just for fun, I want to share that today, well not just today because I know that I have it, but today prior to our show, I had a mirror up to my eye because I was putting on mascara and I saw the yellow wash in the same exact area as his. It's basically just like like a little stripe off of my iris to the left and then to the right. And I have it on both eyes. And I knew that it was related to the liver already.
okay,
But I definitely have that as well. Yep, definitely.
okay.
Yeah, yeah. Just cool that you pointed that
Um,
out.
yeah. And now your
Yeah,
liver is asking for support
yeah, absolutely.
in the most gentle way possible because he's talking through your eyes.
I
You know,
know, I know.
This can appear before you feel any symptoms. Signs in the sclera will appear before we feel anything.
Mm,
But this is another example of a liver that's talking to us through the eyes. So this is not quite as yellow, his sclera, but we can see a little bit of yellowing here.
yeah.
Do you see this right here? It kind of looks like a glob of fat.
Yes, it does.
It's near the corner of his eye. It looks a little bit raised and it has that yellow tinge. That's
Yeah.
the liver. And so we see varying degrees of yellow. We see it in different areas of the sclera. This individual's liver enzymes were elevated.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, I recommended plant-based diet.
Oh, interesting.
He loves fast food,
Oh,
meat. So, but yeah, that's just another example.
his iris is stunningly intricate.
This is
Wow.
an iris that I hardly ever see. His iris structure is one that is very unique.
Oh my gosh, it looks like a sea anemone. I know I'm in the sea right now. I've been in the ocean throughout this
It's,
interview, but yeah, it looks
yes,
like a sea creature. It's amazing. It's absolutely
yeah,
it's so intricate and there's so much going on.
there's so much going on. I know. But really quick,
Yeah.
just another iris sign. Remember how we talked about bordering the pupil is the stomach reaction field?
Yes.
And in the iris, when we see those brightened white fibers, that can indicate an area of irritation, inflammation. Um, he has a very white stomach zone. Would you agree?
Very white.
He has a perfect circle around his pupil that is white.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and that's his stomach. He does have digestive issues. In fact, he has an ulcer,
Oh.
which is common when I see white stomach rings, such as this.
Wow.
So,
Wow. Wow.
and so we would talk about digestion. All of these iris signs, they give the iridologist questions to ask the client, and then they talk. And then they figure out, hey, what's going on? Let's form a plan of attack. Let's change digestion. Let's give you some liver herbs. Let's take away those meat products for a little bit. Sorry.
I
Um,
know, I know. I mean, and look, she's not sitting here trying to tell everybody to stop eating meat here. It's just that, you definitely have your recommendations based on what you're looking at, and that's understandable.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, 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 wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is a very unique iris, to say the least.
This is.
Yeah,
I don't
fantastic.
see it often.
No. So, are there any other pictures or any other descriptive like points of interest that you want to share before moving on? Because I do have some, just a few questions. I have a feeling they're probably questions other people have also, but um, are we going to be visiting some additionals?
I don't think so. I think we've gone through all the eyes,
Okay,
unless
good.
you wanted to look at anything specific.
No, I feel like, let's see, we've gone over quite a bit and we've talked about pupils, we've talked about the sclera, we've talked about the nerve rings, we've talked about the different fields, we've talked about how the clock is representative, and there's different locations. Um, actually, I do have, maybe we can keep this eye up for a second and use it as an example if it's possible, but uh, you've mentioned personality traits, and I realize that it goes hand in hand, right? That like personality traits are very much like plays into how our body um, reacts and our health and vice versa. But would there be like a personality trait that you can pull out of this particular eye, like just by analyzing it?
This one?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, go for it.
So this one is a what we call connective tissue type.
Okay.
Um, but on an emotional level, and yes, the iris does tell us about our emotions, which is another reason why it's so valuable for children to get their eyes read, is that it helps parents understand their child better, helps them understand how God made them, and helps them raise them better. So this particular iris type tends to be very creative. These are the photographers, the painters, the musicians of our world.
Ah,
And they can be dreamers. They really need a lot of creative fulfillment. That's where they shine. And if they don't get that, they start to get withdrawn. And so, if you were raising a child like this, you would know, hey, my child's not just off in la la land, whatever, not listening to me. This is how God made my child. He's a dreamer. He's creative. Let's make sure we nurture that in him. Let's make sure we allow him to take those painting classes, you know? Um, whereas a child like, oh, where is his eye? I don't see it. So we'll just take my daughter's.
back to the blue eye.
This is a very, yeah, this is a very different eye. The fibers are more dense. Do you see that? More
Yes.
close together. There's not a lot of openings in those iris fibers. And she has contraction furrows. She has nerve rings. The other person did not. And so this is going to be a type A. This is going to be someone who gets overwhelmed easily. This is going to be someone who the parents need to teach their children stress coping techniques. This person needs downtime, being careful not to overstimulate and put too much into this child's life, not give them too much information at once. And I will say that people with the nerve rings in their eyes, with these personalities that just go, 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 and you'll know them. You know if you're one of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
You probably don't have to look in your eyes to know if you have nerve rings. In my experience, I just can tell.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they tend to burn themselves out into adulthood. And so, yeah, it just gives parents and even adults the insight into your personality and how God made you, helps you understand yourself better, helps parents raise their children better. So,
Yeah, it's so valuable when it comes to kids. I mean, not that it's not for adults because we're
yeah,
always learning about ourselves, and the more we can learn, the more we can, gear towards trying to figure things out that's going to help us in the future, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, all of it. But for
yeah,
kids, it's just like, this seems like a no-brainer almost.
right. That's
Ah,
why I love getting kids. They are my favorite client. I spend so much time on their eyes.
It's really,
I'll sometimes get asked, do you give discounts for kids? I'm like, I spend more time on children. Like, I love them. They're just so precious.
yeah, yeah, I could
Yeah.
see. And it just I guess the reward that it must be so rewarding to be able to help a family, and to help parents with their kids,
Yes.
and to be able to just get ahead of the game, and in like the most non-invasive way possible, because let's be honest, with kids especially, it's like if it's this non-invasive, which is zero, it's like 0% invasive. It's literally just taking a photo of one's eye. That is so
Yeah.
easy when it comes to kids, right? You're not even having to
Yeah.
take them out of the house.
Yeah. I know.
I know. It's amazing. So I feel like you touched on this before, but I just want to ask I want to ask anyway, and then I have just a few questions that I came up with, but um you hear people say, well, my eyes change color depending on where I'm at, or depending on what I'm doing, or depending on what I'm feeling. So, and we can stay on in eyes if you want, or we can go back to the regular screen. It's up to you in terms of what you want to share. But I know you have something to say about that. So, do our eyes change color? And if not, or if so, how?
So our eyes do not change color.
Okay.
Um, eye color is genetically determined, and it might be disappointing to some people to learn that. And iridology used to believe and used to teach that it could.
Oh.
We also used to believe and teach that the structure could change. So when I mean structure, I'm talking about the iris fibers. So if you, we use, sorry, we used to think that, sorry,
No worries.
um, if you cleanse enough or if you detox enough, my cherry smoothie got caught in my throat. Um, then you could be able to see that little hole right there. You might be able to close that little hole.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, so we used to teach that. We used to believe that. Those were the early teachings. There are still some people that teach that. If you spend enough time on the internet, you are going to see people say, my brown eyes turned blue, my green eyes turned blue, whatever. But updated scientific research has shown us, and we've done so much research on this to change our position, that eye color does not change, iris structure does not change. Um, and just in my opinion, like I said earlier, why would you want to change how God made you, right?
Right, right. How would this apply to infants? You know how infants' eyes look a certain way, and as they grow into, um, just they just grow, right? From newborn to 6 months, and from 6 months to a year, and now they're in toddler age, and their eye color looks so different than when they were 6 weeks old. How is that explained?
So in a young child, the eye does take years to develop. So
Okay.
you could have a blue-eyed child that would turn out to be a biliary, like my eye color, a mixed eye.
Okay.
So it does take a while for the color and the structure to be set.
And that structure and that color is already predetermined.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. That makes
Now
sense.
there are ways that the iris can appear to change color, and that is how you get people on the internet saying my brown eye turned blue.
Okay.
Brown eyes will not lose their melanin. They just won't. They can't turn blue. But most of the time when I see individuals make that claim, the lighting is completely different. So most of the time they're using their cell phones, or they use one camera to take a picture of before and another camera to take a picture after. They're standing inside for one, outside for another. Their clothing is different. They're using frontal lighting for one and side lighting for another, and everything is different. But in order for the science of iridology to accept that eyes change color, that research has to be, all the controls have to be the same. Ideally, you'd use the same camera, same lighting, same focal distance, same aperture, like everything is the same. So you take a client's before pictures and then heal the imbalance within their body. And then you take an after picture with the exact same settings. And when we have done that, nothing has changed.
I see. Okay. Yeah, that makes total sense. It has to be a completely controlled environment.
Yeah, and any blue-eyed person knows that their eyes appear to change color, green with what they're wearing. I mean, when the sun hits my eyes, they look green. Most of the time, they look brown. Um, I will say when we do go through a cleanse, when we do detox, because a lot of these blood vessels in the eye and the sclera
Uh-huh.
speak of congestion within the body. And so when we clean out our blood vessels and we drain our cellular waste and we um, restore homeostasis,
Uh-huh.
these blood vessels will lighten, they'll disappear, the sclera will become whiter. And so if you take an eye, an iris, and you put it against a sclera that might have a yellow wash with a lot of thick blood vessels, maybe it even has a blue wash to it. Um, that's one thing. And then you take that same iris against a bright white sclera after the person has healed their body. It can appear that the iris changed color, but it hasn't. The background, the sclera has changed. So that's another way that the eye can appear to change color.
Okay. That makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense. W- Would you say that would you say that lighter eyes are easier to analyze than darker eyes, or is it the same
I have never had an issue
with any color?
reading a hematogenic brown eye.
Ah,
It's never been difficult for me. We can clearly see the pupil, the collarette.
yeah.
We can see nerve rings. So I guess in a way, yes. In a way, the blue eye is a little bit easier to read. It seems like there are more iris signs to see. Um, but I haven't had a problem reading dark eyes.
That makes sense. This was
Yeah.
this was a question that I had and I had written down, but I almost feel like I know the answer to it already, but just for fun, I'll share it because it
Yep.
seems like you've already answered it. My question was, do issues in iridology reveal all at once, or like, meaning like not all concerns come up at once, but it seems like with the iris, most of the concern, or I should say most of the information presents itself, but it would be the sclera that probably changes because it's more dynamic. Would you say that's correct?
I would.
Yeah.
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 I would say that the iris presents all the information, and the longer you look at it and study it, the more pieces of that puzzle you're able to piece together, and just the more it makes sense. But
Yeah.
yeah, you're correct.
Okay. Okay. So I know you touched on it before, but as we're sort of winding down a little bit, in terms of a client, so if a client contacts you, is it like they give you the information, they give you the pictures, and then it's like one meeting, and then boom, you give them the information? Is it something that's more drawn out? Are you meeting with these clients more than once? Like, what's the typical protocol when you have a client?
So it can depend obviously on the iridologist. Most of my clients are an iris analysis, so they will contact me and I will analyze their eyes. I will email them all of their information. We'll hop on a Zoom like we're on now, and I get to meet the owner of these eyes, which is always really cool. And we'll talk about it and I'll answer questions. And then that's it. They're always free to come back and schedule another call, especially if they implement the suggestions that I recommend, and we can talk about how they're going. So it really depends on the individual. A lot of people just want their eyes read, just an
Yeah.
iris analysis, and then they want that information and that's it.
And then they maybe
But
even move on to another practitioner, huh? If they need to sort of hyper
sure.
focus on one area, or as you
Yeah.
say, nurture, which I really like.
Yeah. Yes,
Okay.
this is one tool in our toolbox that we can use, and it complements every other natural modality for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I feel like, in our in our off air time, you made a comment to me which I remember, and it was the way that you approach your clients is very important to you. And one of the things that you said was that you're very careful to not overload the client. That was, I very, very well specifically remember that. Like, because you don't want people to be scared about their health in any way. You want them to feel empowered and proactive. So how do you manage that? Like if there's something that's like really going on, there's multiple priorities that are happening that you really need to talk to the client about. Like how does that approach? What does that look like?
Yeah, so the iris, as we've discovered, has holds so much information. But I really try to focus on why did the client come to me? And there's usually one or two reasons that's their main concern. And I just focus on that.
Okay.
And we work on that. And then as we solve those problems, we can dig deeper into the eye and learn even more information and tackle something else. Healing is like peeling back the layers of an onion, and you got to go a little bit at a time. Especially if I have an individual with like my daughter's iris structure with all the nerve rings.
Uh-huh.
I'm not going to overload someone like that. And so it depends a little bit on the individual. Some people want all that information, some people, but yeah, we just work a little bit at a time, and every step forward is that's all we need to do. Just little baby steps forward. That's it. And then at the end of a year, oh my gosh, you won't even recognize yourself, your health, right?
Yeah.
But little baby steps.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I love that. It seems like what's special about, well, I'm just going to say you because it's you that's speaking. And I don't know how other iridologists perform, but is that you really, it seems so individualized, and also you are very much intuitively paying attention to the client, which I really like because you're almost reading them. Not just, I mean, it seems like you can kind of tell what sort of eye you might even be looking at before you even, yeah, just upon meeting the client. Like i'm sure
yes,
I'm sure that just even, you and I, right? You've never read my eye, but there might be some notions in your head like, oh, I bet she's got this. I bet she's got. And so that
yes,
intuitive nature, like just starting the process with a client is so helpful and probably just makes such a fantastic experience both for the client but also for you as the practitioner because you're sort of leading with an intuitive foot. And it's something that I've just noticed about you, like speaking to
you.
you and about everything. And so I feel like that's so special because we don't really see that, definitely not in the conventional space as a whole, but also in the functional medicine space and the alternative holistic practices too. You're not always guaranteed that you're going to be sitting across from someone that has like that intuitive nature or that real great bedside manner. So that is just something that stuck out to me. And I wanted to highlight that. So really, really
Thank
cool.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything else that you want to touch on, or just any sort of closing thoughts, anything that you want to highlight, last words that you want to leave us with before just giving more information and resources to our friends who've been listening?
I think there's two things that I could say about iridology, just to stress again, is how valuable it is in prevention, and how valuable it is for children.
Yeah.
Every single child needs an iris analysis to learn how God made them, period.
Mm. Amen to that. And I agree. I do. I think it's a fantastic tool. I wish that more people and more families and more parents knew of this modality and this option. That's why we're doing the show because we
Yes.
want to get it out. We want the word to
Yeah.
spread. Um, if people are interested in working with you and learning more about, your work in general, where can people find you? Website, resources, social media, and so forth.
Yeah. So I have a website, nutritionfromgodsgarden.com. I'll send you links.
Yep, and I will have them in the show
Okay.
notes. Uh-huh.
Um, I'm on IG and Facebook. And then I also want to link you my instructor who I learned under. So if anyone is listening to this and they want to dive into this field, it's needed. It's needed. The demand for iridology is there. I will link you my instructor who I studied under, Beth Hovis. She's a naturopath, a master herbalist. She's amazing. So I'll link you her information as well. So,
Fantastic. Awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, everything will be in the show notes like always. I will have all the links
Okay.
there. It will be really easy to find. And it's usually pretty thorough. So I'll definitely make sure that's all handled. Jessica, it has been so fun.
It has.
I am telling you, this is something that I really want to do. We're going to do it. I would
You won't
love
be disappointed.
I know. I know. I'm so excited. And I'll definitely have to like find a way to do a follow-up, even if it's just on social media with our listeners so that they can learn a little bit more about what I've discovered through learning about my own iris because we're gonna get this
Yeah.
done. So I cannot wait. But thank you
Yeah.
so much for taking the
You're
time to come
welcome.
on. Yeah, for sharing
Yeah. Thank
iridology
you.
with us all. It's really been so fun.
Did you fall in love with the eye?
I did. I did. I mean, I've always been
Good.
fascinated by eyes in general. Like, to me, it's just such a special part of the body, right? Like, we are just so dynamically and intricately and beautifully made. God's design is just so amazing. And I feel like the more I learn, the more I'm in awe, and
I know.
it's just so amazing.
I know. I agree. The more you learn, the more you're like, oh my, like how amazing is our God?
Oh,
He thought of everything, the eye
I know.
and the fingerprints.
I
And
I know. It's really absolutely astounding in the most
yes,
miraculous
I'm,
and best kind of way. Yeah, it's so
yeah,
amazing. It's so
we can
amazing.
find out so much information about ourselves and we don't have to cut ourselves open and take drugs.
I know.
There's, I mean, our saliva can tell us things about ourselves. It's just,
Yeah,
the human body is perfectly made
it
and
is.
it, yeah,
It is. And it is designed to heal, my friends. And so, given the right circumstances and given the right tools, your body can and will change. And that is the entire reason and premise for just sitting in the seat in the first place is to give you different perspectives and to give you different options of how you can handle your health. Obviously, iridology is a beautiful example, and Jessica is a beautiful example of a practitioner who can just help you in such a different way than, I guess, what we would call the conventional paradigms. So, my friend, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much again
yeah,
for
thank
all of
you.
it. Oh my gosh,
I had fun.
absolutely. I'm so glad that you did. I'm so glad. And I hope you have a beautiful day and we'll talk soon.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you.